So I've had a little bit of a YouTube break recently where I took about 7 weeks off. Originally it was only going to be June, and then it ended up running into, we're almost now halfway through July. And I went back to work and stuff, and things just kind of happened. And the problem with taking a long extended break from something like this is that it can be really hard to get motivated and get going again when you kind of think, oh, I'd like to come back. And I can see, I'm kind of getting to a point where I can see that I could easily never make another video and just keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, because that's what I've been doing since the beginning of July. So I thought I would do something really simple and easy, and I've got some ideas of other videos that I want to make, but I thought for my first one I would just jump back in and I would do like a mini review of the decks that I used in April, May, June, and the one that I'm currently using in July. So we're going to start off by talking about the Gilded Tarot by Ciro Marchetti. I used this deck in April. Now I used to own this deck a very, very long time ago, and somehow I lost it. Like, I literally lost it. It's not anywhere. I've gone through all the bags, I've gone through all the drawers, I've gone around the back of the sofa, I've gone through all the cupboards, I've literally looked for this deck everywhere and I couldn't find it. And when I went to Leaping Hare in Colchester last year, which is like a witchy event, a small one, but a witchy event, somebody was selling a used copy for £10, so I bought it. And so this wasn't a new to me deck. It's not a new deck and it's not a new to me deck. It's a deck that I've used before. I reinvested in it because I really like it. There's something about the artwork that I really, really like. I like the colour theme throughout it. So all the suits have their own colour and their little diamond up here, which I really like. I think it's very RWS inspired, which makes it really, really easy to read. I spent some time edging my edges in black, which is something I don't do very often, but it was a bit grey because it's an old deck, so I edged it. And I found this one just really a real pleasure to work with because it wasn't too challenging. So it allowed me the space to just read without having to put in too much additional work, because it's so reminiscent of what we're used to seeing. It's not doing anything particularly unique, but it's doing what it does in a very specific style, which I personally really like. I think as an RWS, it's one of my, like an RWS clone almost, it's one of my favourites. And I have to find it now. I think I've mentioned this before, but this deck has possibly my favourite Lovers card in most decks. There's something about this Lovers card that I just really, really like. And I think it's because, to me, it speaks so strongly of Aphrodite and Aries. And I love that so much. I think it's beautiful. So it's definitely one of my favourite Lovers cards. So there was nothing really, mind-blowing about this deck. It comes with a great guidebook because it's Barbara Moore and she writes some of the best guidebooks ever. And the cardstock is pretty standard Llewellyn cardstock, so it's not overly thick, but it's really easy to riffle shuffle. There's nothing groundbreaking or mind-blowing about this deck. There was no major aha moments with this deck. There was no major connection with this deck. It was just a deck that was really easy and comfortable, and I just really enjoyed spending some time with throughout the month of April. So then in May, I worked with the Ellis Deck Tarot. This is the 4th edition. This is by Taylor Ellis. And this was gifted to me by a subscriber. I hadn't got around to using it before, so again, it was a new to me deck, although again, not a new deck. The person who sent it to me had already modified this deck, so it has been trimmed. It's got lovely backs. I really like the backs. The backs are like this kind of weird uniqueness that I really, really appreciate personally. It shuffles really, really well. So one of the things I love about this deck, and I've talked about before I'd ever used it, I did like a walkthrough of it, I think, and I talked about it then, is that each of these suits, to me, are their own little, like, tribes or groups or communities within some kind of fantasy world. So it's got a real fantasy feel to it, where people are living in specific clans, maybe. I can't think of the word that I'm trying to get out, but they're each their own little unique communities. And then the major arcana is like the major players within this fantasy world. So I love that this deck has created, in my mind, I don't know if that was his intention, but in my mind, this entire fantasy realm with all these different cultures in it and things. I really, really, really love it. I love the Queen of Swords. I love just the swords in general. I really like. It was a deck that I was so excited about working with, and it just didn't hit the spot for me at all. I was actually quite disappointed. I didn't manage a whole month with it. I stopped using it reasonably early. I used it for most of the month, not reasonably early. I stopped using it right up at the end of the month, but I didn't carry on using it until the very end of the month, because I just felt very meh about it. I don't know what it was. I genuinely don't know what it was. I really expected this to be a deck that I would love and I would want to go back to over and over and over again. But for a deck to read with, it just wasn't there for me. There was just something missing in that connection. I still think that there's so much potential with this deck. I love the idea of using it for something else, maybe not day-to-day readings, but using it to help with some kind of storytelling or something like that. There's definitely potential here, but I just didn't get from this deck what I really was hoping to get from it, and I was really disappointed. It's actually one of the few times that I can think of. Tarot of the Hidden Realms was probably another one where I was so excited about a deck, so enthralled with the artwork, had heard such good things about it, and when I came to use it personally, it was just disappointing, and it's not, that doesn't happen to me very often, but it did with this deck. So I was a bit upset about that, but it is what it is, and I will definitely be keeping it because, one, it was a gift, and two, I think there is so much potential in this deck for other uses, and it's just about working out what they are. In June, I worked with the Modern Witch Tarot by Lisa Sterle. This is an RWS deck. It is a diverse, modern version of the RWS, but it is an RWS clone, basically. It comes with, actually, this really cute hardback book, which I'm not necessarily all that bothered about the books, and quite often I don't really look at them, but I really love the colour of this book and how just really cute and unique it is. The box irritates the hell out of me, and the reason it irritates the hell out of me is because it's one of these boxes. So of course, every time I go and pick it up from my shelf, I don't always slide it out properly. I grab it from here and pick it up, and then the bottom does this, and so that is a challenge to my patience, but in general it's not, as issues go, it's not a major issue. It has, again, we have that colouring in the back, which I really love, and it's totally reversible. The cards are quite big. I think the cards are quite big. Like I have pretty normal size hands for my height, I think, but they are quite a big card. And they also have this really plasticky, laminated feel to them, and I admit the cardstock is not my favourite. Some people really love it, and that's, great, and I can see how it would be really durable, and especially for a deck that actually is quite cheap, comparatively speaking, to have then have cards that will clearly last a very long time is really good. I think that is a positive, but they're really shiny. So if you catch them in the light, they're really glossy and shiny because of the hyperlamina. They don't bend very easily, and they're really thick and really, really difficult to riffle shuffle. And I like to riffle shuffle my decks, so that was a con for me with this deck. But I was surprised because I've never been a huge fan of traditional RWS. I like my RWS inspired decks. I'm really not that fussed about the RWS cloned decks because I'm not that keen on the traditional imagery. It just doesn't work for me personally. So I was really surprised by how deeply and instantly I connected with this deck. Like, I really enjoyed working with this deck. I would get out like my book of spreads and my 365 tarot spreads book. They are two different things. I know it sounded like I just repeated myself, but I've got my own book where I keep records of spreads that I find on Pinterest and stuff, and then the 365 tarot spreads book. But I would just find excuses to do readings with it, to use it. I would sit at night and just randomly draw cards, shuffle it and draw cards, and just play around with it. I constantly wanted to be getting out the deck and working with it. And I was really surprised by that because I really didn't expect to love this deck as much as I did. I really didn't. And I don't even know if I could pick my favourite cards in this deck because I just like them all. I mean, obviously you've got the traditional, not the traditional, but the probably the most recognisable deck is the Ten of Swords, because that's where this whole deck came from, right? She made this picture up here, which is the Everything is Fine picture, which I'm now not going to be able to put back up because I can't. I'll do that in a minute. And people were like, oh, that's awesome, you should make a deck. And she did. And I do really love it. But I love every single card. I love every single choice that she's made. I love the diversity in this deck. And it is diverse in terms of gender, in so much as I think everybody is either female presenting or non-binary. There are, I don't think, any males in this deck, if I remember rightly. But it's where it's really diverse is in skin colouring. Over half the deck, I think, has black and people of colour in it, which I think is great. It's really modernised, so you have like the High Priestess has a laptop, for example. Everybody's dressed in really modern clothing. The Fool has her phone with her headphones in and her music. So I was blown away by how much I loved working with this deck, and I don't think it will be very long before I pull it out and work with it again because I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. So the last thing I'm going to talk about, I've only actually been working with for a couple of weeks because I originally, or maybe even only a week, because I started off the month using the Spirit Song Tarot, which is there, because I just wanted something really, like, work has been kicking my ass. I've been really tired and run down. I've had some of my own stuff going on. And so I just wanted a deck that was really light and kind and soft for a few weeks. And the Spirit Song Tarot definitely gives me that. But I was ready to change last week. And I may use this deck going into August as well. I haven't really decided yet. But I've been using the Muse Tarot by Chris Ann. Now, I love Chris Ann's artwork in general. I really love the Lightseers Tarot. It's one of my favourites, my little boho chick deck. I love Hay House. So I love these boxes. I really love these 2-part boxes. These are my favourite types of boxes. If I could have a choice over the deck, the boxes that all of my decks came in, I would either want them in a box like this or a box like the This Might Hurt, where it's all one box, one part, but it has that flip bit. Those are my 2 favourite types of boxes. Just saying. So, and I love the whole design of the box. It's really easy to get in and out of. It's really easy to pick up without it falling apart. I like it. I like it a lot. It's got a good guidebook, but again, that wasn't a huge surprise because I already own the Lights Muse Tarot, and I knew that Chris Ann did some good guidebooks, and so yeah, I was really impressed with that. Cardstock is good. The cardstock is the kind of cardstock I like, so it's not too thin, it's not too thick. It does riffle really, really well. I've just thrown that away. And so far, with limited experience, I'm enjoying working with it. I mean, every single woman in this deck, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of females in this deck. It's all females again, and I do like all female decks. It's personal taste. But they're all very, very similar body types. There is not a lot of diversity within body type in this deck. That is one thing. There is more diversity in terms of skin colour, but age and body type is very, very consistent throughout the whole deck. And I have to say, actually, it doesn't necessarily bother me so much if you pick a style and you stick to it for the whole deck. And that's your thing. That's actually part of the style of the deck, which I would argue in the Muse Tarot it actually is. It's a specific style choice that remains pretty consistent throughout the whole deck. So it doesn't bother me so much, but I would like to just see a bit more age and body type personally. But it's not a huge complaint. It's very unique, I think. Now this bugs me. It bugs me. I've made no secret of this. I talked about it when I've talked about the Love Your Inner Goddess Oracle deck, this one down here, before, because some of the decks are horizontal and all the rest are vertical, and that really bugs me. But that, again, is a personal bugbear. It's a thing that messes with my brain, and I don't like it. But I do like that she's replaced the king with muses. I like that. I like that unique difference. And I like the names that she's given the suits, which really, really work, because I was just flicking through the deck, I was very sure which suit was which without having to look it up in the book. So you have got emotions, which are obviously cups. You've got materials, which are pentacles. You have got, it would have been too easy to have one of each in a row, right? You've got inspiration, which is your wands. And then you have voices, which is your swords. And I didn't have to look them up. I was very, very clear just from reading the names which one was which, because I think she's done a very good job of tapping into the elemental energy of each of the suits when it comes to picking an alternative title. I quite like this collage-y style deck artwork as well, which I know some people love, some people don't, but I like it. So far, I'm enjoying it. It does challenge me. It is one that it does challenge me, and I have to really sit with the images, and it's one where I do like to go and check in on the book and see what she has to say about that particular card, especially in how it relates to the muse itself. And I love the backs. I actually really, really love the backs of this deck. But it's still early days because, as I say, I've only been working with it for a week. So there you go. That's my mini review of the decks that I've been working with the last few months, just to get something up and on my channel, to get me back into the habit of filming. Hopefully this will be the start of many more videos to come. If you have any ideas for any kind of videos you'd like me to make, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you all shortly for another one. Take care, everyone, and lots of love. Bye bye.